Okay, so I'm going to show you how I edit down my sessions. We're going to start by opening up Lightroom. Right now, Lightroom is opening up to the session I previously edited through. So we're going to go over here to Import and select the new session that we want to work on. To do this, I'm going to sort through my computer files over here. This is going to look a little different if you're working on a Mac. And it's also going to run a lot faster if your hard drive isn't at 100% capacity like mine. Okay, I'm going to go through and unselect my test shots. And we're going to import the remaining 440 some odd images. These are all shot in RAW, so it's probably going to take a little bit for it to import. Of course, if you shoot in JPEG, this is going to go considerably faster. Okay, so now we have completely imported all 445 photos from the session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these thumbnails a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to select the ones that are the best from each set, and I'm going to 1-star those. Luckily, Lightroom has a great rating system. You can either use color coding or stars. I prefer stars. Okay, she's smiling a little bit better here. And of course, these are straight out of the camera, so ignore an awful color balance and cropping situation here. I kind of like this one. I like this leaning one. I think that looks really relaxed and really sweet. This is great. The way she's holding on to the rail. I changed my color balance here. You can see that I switched it from custom white balance to sunny, which in some ways is better, in some ways is worse. I'm going to have to go back in and fix all these. She's kind of smiling there. You kind of get the idea of it. Okay, so I've gone through all 440 some odd images, and I have narrowed it down to the very best 59. With those 59 images, I went through and I adjusted the temperature and the tint and the exposure and anything else that needed to be fixed. You can see that we cut it down quite a bit. We've got individuals of Daniela the baby, and then we've got pictures of just mom and baby and dad and baby, and then the family photos, and a few of just the kids by themselves individually. This was a serious lighting challenge, so you'll have to forgive my horrible exposure situation going on here. As As you can see, this was not an easy session. So anyways, we've got several poses that we narrowed it down to, and this is what I'm going to export to a final folder. So we're going to select all, File, Export, and I'm going to create a new folder inside their folder. I'm going to go through here and make sure that all of my settings are correct. I do not want to resize the images. I want them full res. And I want to make sure that it exports it to JPEGs. And I'm going to leave them unwatermarked. Export. So this usually takes just a few minutes. And again, this will run a lot faster if you're not shooting in RAW to start with. Okay, so I have successfully exported all 59 of my favorites from this session. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize the Windows viewer that popped up. We're going to minimize Lightroom, and we're going to open up Photoshop. Now normally I don't do any pre-touching on the images that I'm going to show to clients. So this is strictly just to give you guys an idea of what I would do to an image that had already been ordered. Once again, these haven't been ordered yet or even looked at by the client, so this is going to be strictly just an example for the sake of this tutorial. Okay, so I've got Photoshop open now. I'm going to go to my desktop and find the family, go to the best folder. All right, let's just say that we want to work on, let's see, which one? Okay. How about this one of Daniela? That's pretty sweet. Might take it just a little bit to open. Pretty large file, shot with a Canon 5D Mark II, full frame sensor, so probably about 20 some odd megapixels. Okay, I'm just zooming in on her face because as a portrait artist, it's really important to make sure that all of the skin is perfectly smooth. I'm going to go through here and just use my patch tool to take out some blemishes. I would go right here and select the bags under her eyes, which are perfectly natural, but then I'm going to go back and once I've removed them, I'm going to fade back that removal so that it looks realistic. About 45–50% is usually a good number. Once again, remove that line under her eye and then fade it back a little bit. This is going to be different for every image. Lighting conditions and lots of other things can affect this whole process. So you really don't want to get slave to, any certain process. So I'm just going to do this to kind of smooth out her skin everywhere where it looks a little bit, multi-tone or different colors. Okay, she's got a little scratch down here. This shadow is kind of distracting to me, so we're going to take it out and then fade it back in a little bit. We don't want to completely remove her facial features. She's got these awesome, cute, chubby cheeks, and we want to keep those the way they are. We just want to kind of fade those shadows a little bit. Okay, so now one thing I'm going to do is run an action. It's called, it's under Creative Portraits. It's called Subtle Skin Smoothing. Running this action is great because it's going to kind of gloss over her skin as a whole. You can see it just smooths the entire thing. I don't like that part about this action, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the mask layer, take my paint bucket, move that to black down here on my colors, and I'm going to paint that whole mask layer black so that it erases it. I'm going to go back in with my paint tool, switch my color palette back to white, which is, the color that you use to fill in a mask layer, and I'm going to brush in that mask just over the part that I want to smooth, which is really just her face, excluding her eyes and her mouth. You can see how not going over her eyes is going to give that portrait that pop. Now it's still a little bit too much for me, so I'm going to select that layer and I'm going to go up here to my opacity and I'm going to dial it down to probably about 50% or so. Okay, move my actions out of the way. So you can see that that's a huge difference. If you go to File, Revert to look at the original, that's before. We'll go to Edit, Undo, Revert. That's after. It's a huge difference. Now I still have multiple layers over here from my action. So what I want to do is I want to zoom out and look at the photo as a whole. And I'm going to decide if I need to adjust any of these layers. The curves is going to be what adjusts the lighting as a whole. Okay, so without that layer that it added, that's the original lighting situation. That's with my curves enhanced. I don't mind it, but it's a little much, so I'm going to dial it down just like the smoothing layer. About 60% or so, and I'm going to leave everything else as it is. I think that that's a lot better. So I'm going to go over here to my layers, flatten image. It's going to flatten it down. Now before anything else happens, I'm going to save over the original image. Now if you're new at retouching, you probably would need to save as and rename your file and create a second file, and that way if turns out that you don't like what you created in Photoshop or the adjustments that you made, then you still have your original file to work from. So another thing that I like to do with my portraits is I'm going to zoom back in, take a look at her eyes. I'm going to use my lasso tool and I'm going to go around her eyes. I'm going to hold the Shift key to circle another area, which is her second eye. And then I'm going to go up here to Filter, go down to Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. Okay, and you can see that it just kind of sharpened that just a little bit, not too much. I actually have it preset to the numbers that I prefer, which is about 4 on the radius and then about 35% on the amount. And then I hit OK, deselect that, and you can see a major difference. I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to check the background for any sort of maybe like dead pixels in my camera sensor or any kind of spots that might have got on my lens. I don't see anything. So now I'm going to zoom back out and I'm going to save one more time. Again, you might save as if you're new at this. And I notice that it's a little bit crooked, so I'm going to clear my crop selection and I'm going to straighten the photo just a little bit. There we go. Other than that, I'm going to leave it just how it is because I don't really know what size they're going to order as far as a print. So I'm going to leave it just like that so that if they want to order a wall portrait, I have room to crop in from and there's information there already. So I'm going to go and file save one more time. And that's it. So I'm going to close that out. If you have any questions, you can comment below or you can send me a message. My email is Kelly, Kellie, @kellygann, KellieGann.com. Thanks. Have a great day.